Now, you may wonder, what else is there? If we don't care about the act or the consequences, how can we know what is ethical, what is right, what is the right thing to do? Well, that's where virtue ethics, the final ethical theory for today, comes into play. Virtue ethics is a tradition within philosophical ethics that seeks a full and detailed description of those character traits or virtues that would constitute a good and full human life. So virtue ethics focuses on who the decision maker is as a person. And in addition to that, it focuses on the virtues the decision maker should possess. And most importantly, virtue ethics does not care about what a person should do, because that would be deontology, or what the consequences of an act are, because that would be utilitarianism. An implicit assumption in this distinction is the recognition that your identity as a person is constituted in part by our wants, beliefs, values, and attitudes. And we have to ask ourselves, what traits or virtues would constitute a good and full human life? Once you know what character traits are important, you can then ensure that your actions and intentions are in line with these virtues. So it's important to know what kind of person you should be and what kind of character you should have. If you face a scenario, one where you have to make a decision, you can always ask yourself, if I want to become an honest person, what would I do? If I want to be a generous person, what would I do? Since motives, intentions, and actions are an expression of one's virtues, it is important to do the right thing for the right reason. As a result, to be virtuous means that one tells the truth not because of the consequences of lying, or because lying is bad, but one tells the truth because of his or her views about honesty and deception. I want to be an honest person, hence I will not lie. While some scholars argue that an act is good as long as the decision maker has good intentions, most scholars agree that the goodness of an act cannot be solely defined by the decision maker's motives. Good intentions need to be paired with good acts. This approach is more objective and acknowledges that biases may distort decision makers' motives and motivations. Confucius, Plato, Aristotle, and Nietzsche have developed slightly different forms of virtue ethics. However, at the core of each approach are virtues that represent deeply integrated character traits. For example, Aristotle argued that moral virtues involve emotions and reason. And Aristotle specifically focused on justice, charity, courage, truthfulness, modesty, and friendliness. Confucius, another supporter of virtue ethics, stressed patience, knowledge, sincerity, and obedience. Whichever way you go, it's important to note that one should not single out a specific virtue, but strive for the golden mean, a state where all virtues are balanced. While the goodness of an act can potentially be assessed post hoc, if you see somebody doing something, you can always assume whether the act itself is good or bad. Individuals' intentions are impossible to observe. Moreover, individuals are often unable to even explain their intentions, making them very difficult to measure. Why did you do certain things? Sometimes you don't know. A better example might be, how do you know whether a person stopped to help an elderly man cross the road because he was concerned about the man's safety, or simply because he wanted to impress his significant other or date? The act itself, helping the person cross the road, is a good act. But with virtue ethics, the intentions matter. If I do it to look good for others, well, the act itself might not be virtuous. In addition, virtue ethics is an agent-focused approach that aims at improving character traits or virtues that constitute a good and full human life. However, it neglects to take into consideration the needs and perspectives of others. For example, just because I want to help you does not mean that my help is appreciated. Maybe you want to do it by yourself. Or I may see myself as a virtuous person because I donate X amount of money to charities each year. But other people might disagree and think that my contribution is not enough. The case of Mother Teresa illustrates the challenges of virtue ethics very well. At the time of her death, Mother Teresa had opened 517 missions, welcoming the poor and sick in more than 100 countries. The missions have been described as homes for the dying by doctors visiting several of these establishments in Calcutta. It is likely that she has inspired many humanitarian workers whose actions have truly relieved the suffering of the destitute and addressed the causes of poverty and isolation without being extolled by the media. Now, when you hear those facts, that sounds extremely good, like a very virtuous person. I mean, a person who dedicates her life to care for the poor and sick, who inspired hundreds, if not thousands, to do the same, must be a virtuous person. Wouldn't you agree? But, as always, there's more to the story. We don't know the intentions. Why did Mother Teresa do this? Apparently, the sisters were also instructed to pretend that they were just cooling a patient's head with a wet cloth, while in fact they were baptizing him or her, saying quietly the necessary words. Secrecy was important so that it would not come to be known that Mother Teresa's sisters were baptizing Hindus and Muslims without the knowledge. In 2013, a comprehensive review covering 96% of the literature on Mother Teresa, a group of University of Montreal academics raised issues. She was caring for the sick by glorifying the suffering instead of relieving it. Her questionable political contacts and her suspicious management of enormous sums of money she received, and her overly dogmatic views regarding, in particular, abortion, contraception, and divorce. I'm pretty sure Mother Teresa thought of herself as a very, very virtuous person, even when she baptized Muslims and Hindus without their consent or knowledge. In her view, she enabled them to go to heaven. I, however, have a lot of problems with this scenario, and I would have to disagree that her actions were virtuous. How about you? What do you think? Do you think Mother Teresa is a virtuous person knowing what she did? Do you think that she thought of herself as a virtuous person? Well, That is it for the first business ethics lecture. Now that you know the basics of deontology, utilitarianism, and virtue ethics, you may want to take a few minutes and think which theory guides you the most. And how do you actually determine whether an act is ethical or not? I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, and I am very much looking forward to seeing you soon in our online class, where I'll be clarifying any questions you may have, and in addition go over cases to ensure that you are not only understand the concepts, but you're also able to apply them. Well, that's it for today. Have a wonderful day and thank you for watching.